Greetings, everybody. This is a community movement builders political education class. Today, we're going to go over one of my favorite books, one of my favorite materials here, which is Jalil Muntaqim, We Are Our Own Liberators. One of my favorite books because whenever I think about political education, the first thing that comes to my mind is not just learning concepts, but also how do we immediately apply these things on the ground. And so this book was one of those books that inspired me because it was very helpful for me to understand what needs to be done, in other words. And I was able to use a lot of these programs to say, yes, these are some tangible programs that we could do and implement for the people, but it also gives us a great understanding of our situation, where we're at, and where we're trying to go. So with that being said, our special guest here is the author of the book, Baba Jalil Muntaqim, Free the Land, my brother.
By all means necessary, my brother. No doubt about it.
Right.
All right. We have no choice in the matter. Otherwise, we're going to be annihilated in this country. That's what they're moving for. That's what they're working towards. And so it's extremely important that we get ourselves together in terms of organizing ourselves, but in as much as organize ourselves, understand what we're organizing for, but what we're moving towards. And unfortunately, within our New African or Black Liberation Movement, there is contradictions that has to be resolved. Well, we know that in revolution is based upon the resolutions of contradictions. Okay, there wasn't no contradiction, would be no need for us to engage in revolution. All right. Our greatest contradiction, of course, is that we are an oppressed nation within an oppressor nation. We don't think we have actually synthesized that within ourselves. Many of us have not. However, for those who identify themselves as New Africans, right, and many do not, but those who do identify themselves as New Africans, it is essential, it is required develop the means for which we can communicate with one another, join in unity with one another, and understand our trajectory in terms of our struggle, where we're going, and how we're going to move there. This book, We Are Liberators, was written over 20-something years ago, right? While I was inside this prison system. And I knew at the time of writing, I was writing for the future, right? I was writing for a time when the social conditions, the social, economic, political conditions will be ripe for people to be acceptable to the materials that is offered in this book. Why is that important? Because we know that we cannot be a revolution without revolutionary theory, right? And for the most part, I have learned over the years in my studies, right, particularly the almost 50 years I did inside prison, that no one has actually formulated a serious, practical, pragmatic, theoretical foundation for which to build our movement. Therefore, I took on the task, right, and I did it in a way that I left it open for interpretation and left it open for editing. And what I mean by editing, knowing that the social and economic conditions would change, right, in the course of time. I recognized that change in the course of time that I could not envision when I first wrote this book, that I decided that to write it in a way that people can contribute to its development, right, in terms of what? Building on the idea from which it evolves from, particularly in regards to the decolonization programs. All right. So do you want me to get right into the three-phase theory for national independence?
Yes. I can share a screen. This is I hope everybody can see that.
Right. Now, I don't know how many people have read this or studied the material, but it's important that you do so. Right? If you haven't got a copy of the book, please order your copy of the book, and I'll put it in the chat where you can order it if you have not done so already.
Let me
Thank you.
Okay, that's where you can order the book if you haven't got it already. Okay, now, so let's have a general understanding of what is here being offered, right? The book was written for the purpose of trying to develop a national front for our struggle. And as we know, those of us who are part of the New African Independence Movement, that our provisional government is at this point in time is in disarray, right? When I say in disarray, that is not as united as it could be or should be. So therefore, it is required that we create something that is supplement. I use that word. Supplement what the PGRNA is to become, right? And therefore, I had called for the building of Folding Out Front for the Liberation of the African Nation, which comes from Frelimo, right? Mozambique struggle for national liberation and independence, right? Using that language, using their words, using their understanding of their struggle against colonialism, and adopting those conditions, those situations to our conditions. Right? Three-phase theory for national independence. Well, three-phase theory of national independence has, as mentioned in the title, 3 parts, right? And we are presently engaged in the first phase of that struggle, the first phase of that theory, right? It's important for us to understand that phase of the theory because it is going to be the most difficult part of our struggle. Class struggle for national liberation, the class struggle for national unity is the most difficult part that we have to engage in, right? And it will be the longest part that we have to engage in, right? Because we have to change people's minds, change people's thinking. We have to decolonize our thinking. And not only that, decolonize our thinking, but we have to build unity amongst all those of the same thinking idea, same thinking mind, who identify themselves as New Africans. All right, so if someone wants to read the first 2 paragraphs, all right, I'll appreciate that. And if you want to discuss it, we can go from there. First 2 paragraphs, anyone?
I'll start. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. With a full understanding of our history in relationship to the colonial USA government and its economic system of monopoly capitalism and imperialism, we are then able to develop a practical theory to formulate a decisive working strategy by which to educate, organize, and mobilize our oppressed New African nation for complete sovereignty and independence. It is important that recognition is given to our task for a social, political, economic, and cultural perspective, that we totally commit ourselves to an arduous struggle for national emancipation and liberation, allowing absolutely nothing from preventing our success and freedom from racist, colonial, and neo-colonial subjugation. Our 3-phase theory for national independence is based on the historical manifestation of our national oppression in racist capitalist America. The theory negates nothing from our history, although it established its pragmatic foundation on prevailing conditions. It moves from these conditions, building conceptual understanding of how our practice must conform to given realities. If we are able to be free, the 3-phase theory for national independence.
We are to be free.
If we are to be free, the 3-phase theory for national independence is based on the principles of dialectical materialism, determining the need of both class and national struggle.
Okay, thank you. Now, does anyone have any concerns about the idea of dialectical materialism? Do you understand what dialectical materialism is and what it means in theory and practice? Anyone knows? Can we explain dialectical materialism?
Okay. From my understanding, it's putting priority over matter versus mind. Mind is more subjective. That deals with like religion, love, feelings, hatred, bigotry, and material is more objective, the things people can touch and actually are suffering under and struggling through. So the dialectical materialism to me is just put more focus on the material.
Okay, all right. That's not bad, but let's get into a little more deeper understanding. Right, dialectics in and of itself is the unity of struggle of opposites. Right, we know that in the world in which we live in, that everything is based upon the the principles of unity and struggle, right? The concept of unity and struggle, right? Without contradictions, there is no growth, there is no development, there is no moving forward, all right? And so dialectic is essentially the principles for which we seek the means to resolve contradictions. In Google, I'm just going to raise this up, right? Google says the Marxist theory adopted by the official philosophy of Soviet communists, that political and historical events results from a conflict of social forces, the conflict of social forces, and are interpretable as a series of contradictions, as I made mention earlier, to resolve contradictions and their solutions. The conflict is developed or believed to be caused of material needs. Okay, so we have the unity and struggle of opposites, right? Which is conflict, which is contradiction. Okay, but we associate those contradictions, the unity, struggle, opposites, on material reality for which we engage in social, economic, and political. Right? We're not using social dialectics as a means to discover our spirituality, right? Or the metaphorical, not metaphorical, metaphysical goals and ideas for those who are quote unquote religious, right? Or believe in a spiritual existence. The communists, of course, when they organized or when they developed this theory, Marxist, they believe themselves to be inanimate objects, right, on this planet. What I mean by that is this here. They didn't believe themselves to have a spiritual foundation, right? They negated that aspect of our struggle. And that is their struggle. And that is unfortunate because they have lost a very critical part of who we are as human beings on this planet. All right, so we are applying dialectics, right? Dialectics, unity, struggle of opposites, to understand the material conditions for which we're engaged in, right? Whether it be socioeconomic. So that means that we need to find the cause and the results, the cause and effect, right, of the conditions for which we engage in, and that's using dialectics. So if we understand the cause, and naturally, if there's a broader understanding of dialectics when you use dialectical historical materialism. Now, when you use historical materialism, that means you're going into history and gleaning that which is consistent with what's going on today, right? And then you're making those kind of comparisons, right? And then creating socioeconomic conditions that challenges the conditions of oppression, right? By using history as a foundation. And we can do that historical materialism. And so I do that in many aspects in terms of this three-phase theory. In the writing of this book, I allege there are 4 epochs of engaging in our struggle, right? And although there's probably 5 now, considering what happened with Floyd and the movement that evolved from out of that, okay? Nonetheless, by understanding dialectics, we are more able to be scientific in our understanding of the changes that need to be made, our understanding of the contradictions that we're confronting, okay? And naturally, it has to be based on material reality because people don't fight for ideas. Keep that make that understood. People do not fight for ideas. They fight for material goals and objectives. Things that include clothes, housing, education, healthcare, to be free of oppression, right? These are things that people fight for. And so in that fight, we must be able to offer them something in terms of alternatives, alternative systems, alternative way of living. So I break down in that understanding, right, certain conditions for us to know what we're doing if we're going to, in fact, engage in the national liberation of independence, right? And those conditions are 5, right? Now, these, keep in mind, this was written over 25 years ago, okay? So some of the statistical information is outdated, all right? So it's up to you all to find the updated information to support this foundation. Okay, we recognize that we are subjected to an oppressed, colonized nation and imperialist government of the United States of America. Does anybody do not agree with that? Right? If you don't agree with that, then we have a problem. Okay, the racist national oppression of monopoly capitalism are 2 all-pervasive beings in which U.S. imperialism maintains a colonial stranglehold, a stranglehold on the African nation with miscegenation, right? Assimilation, individualism, sexism, and competition being the character control of the super exploitation of our people. All right. So what I mean by that, miscegenation. Well, we know that we are a miscegenated people people. That's how we came to an understanding of who we are as being New Africans, because of the degree from which we are miscegenated from the time where we were in Africa, right? And we came over with Igbo, we were Fulanis, we were Hausa, we were Yoruba, we were Mandinka, we were Mandingos, some were Arabs, all right? They brought over and we miscegenated. They took all this and put it together and they miscegenated, right? Not only did we miscegenate with ourselves in terms of Africans, right, but we also miscegenated with who? With the Dutch, the Portuguese, the English, and the Spanish, okay? The slave traders, the Atlantic slave trade, right? Miscegenated. Not only did we miscegenated with them, but we also miscegenated with the Cherokee, the Seminoles, and the Creek. My great-grandmother is Creek from Muskogee Creek from Alabama, all right? And so this created conditions for which we began to identify ourselves as New Africans, right? We recognize the history of miscegenation, and we are accepting of that history of miscegenation, recognize that they have created, by virtue of the Atlantic slave trade, created a New African, okay, right? Not only that, but, and let me make this point, in this understanding, right, in my understanding of being a New African, this is here. We should be able to talk to the world. We should be able to speak to the world. Once we establish our struggle on a broader scale, right, on a Pan-Africanist scale, we can speak to the Dutch, Suriname Dutch, right? Suriname was colonized by the Dutch. Or you can speak to Portuguese, or our African brothers and sisters in Brazil, where the largest slave trade was in Brazil, not in the United States, right? We can speak Spanish from our comrades and brothers and sisters in the Caribbean islands, right? We can speak English, right? We can speak all these languages, should be able to speak all these languages and be able to tell the world our conditions. And so we're not there yet, but we need to get there, right? That's how we envision who we are as a people. And when we build a new Africa, we are to speak to the world in those languages. Our colonial condition is reinforced by the institutionalization of class divisions and neo-colonial control by members of the African nation. What I mean by that is that we have individuals who seek to control us on behalf of the power, on behalf of those who oppresses all of us, right? The oppressor nation, particularly the system itself, right? And that's the reason why we have to engage in class struggle. 4, the new African nation is entitled to restitution and reparations with the U.S. government for over 4 centuries, over 5 centuries of colonial domination, including monetary compensation, land, machinery, industrial technology, military equipment to establish our sovereignty and security to defend against future aggression. Okay, I think we understand that. Essential for us.
I wanted to ask a question because I think this comes up a lot.
Yes,
like on the question of reparations, I think I was always taught, or at least I've always believed, that reparations is like land, as like kind of basis for struggle. But I know like I know you talk about neo-colonialists going on in the chapter, but I feel like there's a kind of like that bourgeoisie sector is pushing for like just money to be maintained within the empire. I just want your thoughts on that.
Absolutely correct. Now, as I mentioned right there, I said for monetary compensation, land, machinery. So yes, land is included in my understanding of reparations. It is essential that we get. Now, keep in mind that if you know field order number 15, right? And what occurred with field order number 15, we were building our own nation at that time, right? In 1861, 62, 63, after the Emancipation Proclamation, Field Order 15. And we're building our from St. John South River to the Florida Basin, right? Was land that we was in control of for a period of time. And we built what we call freedmen bureaus, which was the governing institutions of building out our nation, our oppressed nation during that period of time, until they had the Tilden Compromise, Buchanan-Tilden Compromise, in which they removed us, or removed the Yankee troops that were supporting or defending, or I said the best way I can say, defending our building of the nation, of our oppressed nation, right? And then we removed them as a result of that compromise, and we had over there at that point in time we had over 100 years of lynching. Right, 100 years of lynching, and it was the first major migration out of the South into the North and the West. Number 5, as an oppressed nation, as an oppressed nation of colonized people, we are the third largest nation of African people in the Western Hemisphere. We have a population of 30 million, actually about 40 million now, with a purchasing power of over 500,000, say nearly $1 trillion, and must be afforded international recognition and status in both the United Nations and the Organization of African Unity. Okay, so that was written back then. Now let's get into the three-phase theory. Somebody want to read the first paragraph? We'll take it from there.
I'll go ahead.
First,
Oh, go ahead.
paragraph.
Go ahead.
Is it can hereby? Is that where we at?
Yep.
I got you. All right. It can hereby be determined. Make it smaller. Okay, there it is. Okay, it can hereby be determined the middle class, petty, bourgeoisie, culture nationalists can be aligned to the new African working class upon realizing Black capitalism is a tool of the colonial ruling class oppressors, utilized by the neo-colonist agents.
Where are you reading from, bro?
I'm sorry, am I direct?
The first phase, on the second page, the bottom.
Under first phase class struggle for national unity, this one down here.
Down
right.
there. Oh, I got you right
Yes,
there.
sir.
Okay, got it. I got you. I apologize. It is first important to identify the various classes in which national unity can be brought. We recognize the fact that the new African people are a colonized nation in the United States. We also recognize that the new African colonization is one of the race. Can you go to 112? Oh, there it is. Okay. Are economically and materially tied to the system of oppression.
Yeah, Fail on the left page. Top left.
I apologize, y'all. In class oppression, the division of oppression between European Americans and New African is buffeted by a system of neo-colonization established and maintained by members of the New African nation, who are in essence neo-colonist agents of the oppressor nation government.
All right, does anybody have any disagreement with that paragraph, with that understanding? Any questions regarding that? Right, that there is a system that's buffeting our national liberation struggle and independence movement by virtue of people of our color, of our nationality, of our personal experiences, right, our historical experiences, who are functioning as agents of the state, right, either consciously or unconsciously. That's what they're doing, right, and they need to be charged and challenged on that. I'll read the next paragraph. Right, these neo-colonists are national.
I had one thing I wanted to say.
You got a question?
Yeah, like I kind of wanted to ask, like, what's the importance of like seeing ourselves as that nation, you know, as sort of that nation within a nation, you know?
Okay, all right. Well, as I stated earlier, there are many of those who do not, right? They feel, I don't know what the ultimate goal is, like the Black Liberation Movement, BLM movement in and of itself, which we evolved out of or evolved from, right? There has not been a decisive understanding of what that goal is, right? And that's problematic for me, right? They don't know whether they want a socialist America or a forced return back to Africa or for us to create our own nation state here within this colonial entity that they call the United States. And so for me, it is important that we define who we are and our goals and objectives, all right? So I'm of the belief and understanding that we are, in fact, represent a nation. Now, if you read in the book, it explains in another part of the book what constitutes a nation, right? And what constitutes a nation is having the same ethos, right? Language, culture, right? And in some instances, territory, right? And these conditions, right, for those who want to be a nation, can establish themselves as a nation. Not only that, but the Declaration of Declaration of Human Rights, Article 15 states that everybody has an opportunity to to establish itself as a nationality or a nation, right? And no one can be prevented from establishing themselves as a nation, right? That's Declaration of Human Rights. And so we have a human right, if we so desire, right, to establish a nation or define ourselves as a nation and establish that nation. Okay, but again, the conditions of nationhood, we can discuss that at another time. The information is in the book for us to glean and have a full understanding of what it means to be a nation. For instance, it says here, this is why the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic and Social and Cultural Rights states, all people have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. The United Nations Declaration of Granting Independence says that the inherited right of colonized people to struggle by all means at their disposal, by all means possible, right, at their disposal against colonial aspirations and freedom and independence. And so we find that the international law provides us with the guidance from which we can establish our nation if we so desire to do so. And that's the reason why I said at the top of this discussion, the importance for us who identify themselves as new Africans, right, come together, unify, and build collectively towards an idea. The only goal is to free the land. Okay. If you have some goals outside of that, or opposite of that, or in contradiction to that, then I would say that more often than not, you're either confused or you're the enemy. One or the other. Right? We cannot take any shorts on this. Right? Our baby's future depends upon it. Okay. I hope I answered that question sufficiently. If not, remember, in the book, you can read from, what page is that? International Law, Political Prisoners. You read from International Law on Wars and National Liberation Against Colonialism for Self-Determination and Independence. That entire paragraph, that entire chapter speaks to the idea of building a nation, establishing a nationhood, right? It's the chapter called "The Case Against the United States Domestic Neocolonialism," right? That is the chapter. Read that chapter, and it was established the foundation. Okay, as we go on, these neocolonialists are the national bourgeoisie of the present new African nation. The national bourgeoisie are Black politicians and business people, capitalists who are integrationists and assimilationists, right? Let's make that point especially clear. They want to assimilate into the system of capitalism and imperialism. They want to assimilate into the system of white supremacy, right? And that's problematic, no matter which way you look at it, right? And it's due to, in my thinking, the colonized mentality, colonized thinking, right? They aspire policy making in organizations that have oppressed new African people to integrate and assimilate into the government of oppression. This idea has been historically manifested as, in essence, an illusion in which it is the national bourgeoisie who benefits with token concessions, right, for the colonial government, rewarded for their efforts to maintain order and control of the new African nation. Keep that in mind. Their job is to keep us in control. Their job is to mitigate against our militancy and against our capacity to engage in oppression, engage in a fight for revolutionary independence. That's their job, right? And that's the reason why we have to engage the class struggle, because we have to challenge them on that, right? We have to say, in no uncertain terms, you're an agent of the state. You're working for the agent of the state, that you're an assimilationist, right? That's part of the process in which we have to engage the class struggle. And so identify certain organizations and businesses, and there are more than what is here, that represents that idea, right? All of them work in the interest of the colonial government and in their own interest, aspiring integration, assimilation into the system of capitalist imperialism. And by seeking to stifle, and I may mention, stifle the militant struggle of the present African people for independence. That's their goal and objective. And that's why they have to be challenged, right? And we cannot move forward. We can't engage with the principal contradiction. The principal contradiction is with the enemy, with white supremacy, with capitalist imperialism. That's the principal contradiction, right? But the particular contradiction is within the class of within our nation, right? So you have the particular contradiction and you have the principal contradiction, okay? All right, that's important to understand in dialectics. All right. Let me see. I'm going down to the third paragraph, where it says, under national oppressors or the petty bourgeoisie. the culture nationalists, right? Many of culture nationalists. We got a lot of our people, right, who speak the lingo, right? They understand the oppression, okay? And what they do, they wear their African garb. They try to speak the language. They go into particular religious animus or faith, right, and practices, right, as a way for which they can spiritually divorce themselves from the system of white Christian nationalism, okay, or culturally divorce themselves from white Christian nationalism, all right. But in the same token, they're still maintaining within themselves the capacity to function in a capitalist imperialist system, all right. So they understand that we are not white, right, and that we come from Africa, right. But their goals and objectives is not that of being a sovereign nation, and that's problematic. That's basically cultural nationalism, right? Cultural nationalism ain't gonna free us. Make that point explicitly clear. Okay, you speak all the Swahili or Arabic or Yoruba or Kemetic languages you want, right? All you want. You wear the garb and the whole bit. But you know what you're gonna do the next day, right? You're gonna adhere to the idea of capitalism, right? Capitalism is based upon two principles. Let's keep this important fact, right? Competition and individualism. This is what they teach us from the time we go into kindergarten, right? Individualism and competition. If you take away competition, there is no capitalism. Like you take away individualism, there is no capitalism. Capitalism has to have individualism and it has to have competition. Okay. So what's the opposite of that? Unity and cooperation. Right? And that's what we're building in terms of this class struggle, right? We're trying to build unity and cooperation amongst the New Africans, to wherever their standing is. Or we identify them as enemies of the people and they be adjusted accordingly. And I mean adjusted. Okay. So the middle class, as I say here, right? The middle class culture nationalism attempts to maintain a Black social consciousness in terms of identifying with the New African oppressed masses, right? But because they are in essence capitalists, their aspirations as pseudo-nationalists, fake nationalists, funky nationalists is forsaken, right? They are economically, materially tied to the system of oppression, and these ties are manifested politically as intended to support and enhance prospects of neocolonialism, ensuring Blacks are representatives of Blacks who are representatives of the colonial U.S. government, right? As an example, building the Black political party, right? In allegiance to the Democratic Party or in opposition to the Republican Party, but adhering to capitalist imperialism, okay? That's problematic, all right? We have individuals, for instance, we got these mayors, Black mayors and these Black Congress people and running for president and all that, right? They're assimilationists, right? They're not revolutionaries. They're not dealing for our freedom. And so they have us believing the illusion of inclusion, right? Having us believe that voting is going to free us, right? Because we put a Black face in a white house. Come on now, let's think, people, right? That is not going to change the reality of our situation, right? Because they represent a system of exploitation, a system of imperialism, all right? So in as much as it's the people system as well. Okay, so here we go. I go down a little further. I say, hence, they are actually social and political reformists. That's what they are. Utilizing the oppression of New African masses as stepping stones to assure their own security and survival as capitalists, right? Those are the ones who goes out in the streets and when we are ready to riot and tear up shit, right? They're the ones who go out to tell us to quell it, to cool down, to chill out, right? Go back home. You know what I'm saying? This ain't our fight. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, them jackinate Negroes, right? They need to grow, okay? And they understand what our struggle is. Yeah, they're Negroes, right? And that's problematic as well, traumatic for us, right? Because now we have taken on, not saying us, New Africans. That's why I talk about identifying ourselves, right? As New Africans, right? But those who identify themselves as Negroes, and there's many that do, right? That's how traumatic they have been damaged to a point where the enemy gave them a name and they identified the name that was given to them by their enemy, a Negro. And as far as I know, the word Negro means black in Spanish, right? And I ain't Spanish. So how am I gonna be Negro? Come on now, let's think. Okay, that's a reality situation. And so for me to identify myself as New African is to divorce myself from these systems. All right. So the majority of New Africans are lower class workers, laborers, proletariat class. They're the semi-skilled manual laborers and office and factory workers whose standard of living is just above or at poverty level. And we know that's true. Right here, I live in Rochester. Rochester is the third worst city of poverty in the country. In the country. And you know what got going on in the community? Murder, mayhem, right? But you'll find that any area in the world where the people are the poorest, right? They subject themselves to all kinds of means of which is survival. More often than not, it's predatory, right? It's predatory on each other, rather than understanding that the real enemy is those who created those conditions. And that's why we have to engage in class struggle. That's why we have to. That's the reason why it was important for the Black Panther Party, as an example, right? Or the original or development of the RNA was to reach into the lumpen class, the proletariat class, right? You see that in NOI as an example. That's who they reach out to. Reach out to the proletariat class, of the lumpen class, right? And they bring them in, clean them up, right? Give them consciousness, give them a purpose, right? And that's what we have to do. We have to give our brothers and sisters in the streets a purpose, right? And get them to understand that the system in and of itself is not in their best interest. And this capitalist idea it works to our detriment, right? They have to understand that the CIA committed, what's the word I'm looking for? Chemical warfare in our community. The government did that. The government putting drugs in our community, right? We know that because there are movies about it. They told us, right, that they put drugs in our community. Free Ray Wick told us they put drugs in our community. And what are we doing? Right, out of our ignorance, go right into that system, right, of killing ourselves, of poisoning our community. Okay, so this is the kind of struggle that we have to engage in. We have to challenge our brothers and sisters on the streets.
I got a question.
I say down here, I said, okay, come on, bro.
One question is Kamala Harris neo-colonialist? And yeah, I just want to make it clear, is she a neo-colonialist?
If anybody who lives as New Africans don't know that,
okay.
You gotta question your credentials, bro. You gotta question your credentials, sister. You know what I mean? It's very much representative of the neo-colonial class, right? The assimilationists, the integrationists, right? And keep in mind that Martin Luther King, in his latter years, right, began to change, began to think, right, that this integration stuff ain't working. This ain't what we want, right? He has actually stated that he felt that he was moving our people into a burning building, into a burning house. That's his words, not my words, right? That the system, the government in and of itself was a burning house. And he's trying to usher us into that house. And he began to rethink that this is not the way we need to go. Okay, yeah, fentanyl is, where that crap come from, right? Who's the chemist to put together fentanyl, right? And then they ushered it into our community, right? It's deliberate.
You had a question, Kenton?
Yeah, I do have a question. I know in the work we do, we definitely deal with the lumpen class a lot, you know. But my question is, when do we get at a point where, for lack of better words, where we don't spend as much time? Because my own personal experience, I see a lot of time we can spend a lot of energy and resources with that particular group of people and still not get anywhere. I guess we all heard the saying, it's better to, work with the youth than trying to reform and change older people that are more so stuck in their ways and won't change, and that can drain a lot of resources and time and energy, and overall people get frustrated from that. What do you see a line do you supposed to draw, and you supposed to cut the bait, or just keep pushing forward and trying to work with the lumpen class? always, and regardless of how stubborn to their changes they're willing to make.
My phone is going off. There's an amber alert. So I don't know how to do that. Okay, let's stop. All right, cool. Yes, brother. We have no choice in the matter. We have to engage them. If we don't, they will. Okay. They are the class. The upper class is the class that is most acceptable to be snitches, to turn agents, to infiltrate, to be provocateurs. All right, because their mentality is one of capitalists. Right. They're all about getting the money. Right. Let's get this money, man. By any means that they feel is necessary. Okay. So we have to engage them because ultimately they're going to function in a capacity that hurts us, that's detrimental to us, right? And often we'll find that once you raise their education, raise their understanding, they'll find that their system in which they are moving in, right, is detrimental to them as well, detrimental to their family, to their community. Okay. So engaging them is important. That's the reason why I said that the class struggle for national independence, the class struggle for national unity is the most difficult, right? It's the long struggle, this class struggle for national unity, right? Well, we can't move forward. Believe you me, we will not move forward. We will not be successful if we don't garner as many of our own people to be in unity in our struggle for national liberation and independence, right? We won't win, okay? We won't win. Our people united will not be defeated. Fact. All right. So our task is to unite our people. But we got to understand the process in which we do goes. Who are the people that we need to unite with? Right? And make that kind of understanding. So I'll go on and say here, almost at the bottom of this page, it says, the racist national oppression is found in every vestige of Black proletariat existence in housing, employment, health, social institutions. The colonial government maintains the policies and regulations when and how such living means are to be dispensed in the African community and or to the benefit of the Black proletariat. Racist national oppression and classification serves to trap the Black proletariat in a socioeconomic condition. Turn the page, please. The condition of level of subsistence where poverty is always close at hand. Always, right? You got to eat, right? And they don't just give you just enough, right? So they can use your labor and exploit your labor. Just enough, okay? But the socioeconomic, the social political, the Black proletariat aspires to end colonial domination and racist oppression, and not for such conditions to be covered in blackface, right, by the neo-colonialists, right? So you hear the brothers on the block, and they know, I get this is what I'm using, internally, right, innately, they understand that this system is rotten. Okay, but they have come to the condition that this is the only way I can make it, I can survive, because the system always keep you one check away from poverty, right? And that's deliberate. It's intentional. Okay, and so beneath the working class are the subculture lumpen, or the unskilled, the menial laborers, right, whose primary means of subsistence is based on hustling, stealing drugs, thievery, prostitution, etc. The marginally employment, right, and welfare. And for the most part, the socioeconomic provisions within the subculture are maintained by illegitimate capitalists. What I mean by that, illegitimate capitalism, because they aspire the capitalist idea, the bourgeois capitalist idea of wealth, power, respect. And that's what they say in them raps, right? Wealth, power, respect. That's what they say in them raps, that loop that's in their heads all the time. You know what I'm saying? But the method for which they aspire is illegitimate, okay, according to the law, right? So that's the reason why we identify them as illegitimate capitalists, because their value system is that of the capitalists. The method for which they fulfill that value system is illegitimate or unlawful, right? And more often than not, it hurts our community. It's a detriment to our community, okay? So according to the aspirations to fulfill the social values of bourgeoisie, they employ business acumen in criminal activity for subsistence and profit. As they seek material wealth and social status of the bourgeoisie within the confines of the subculture, right? The bling bling and all that stuff, right? The Bugattis and all that stuff that they say they're gonna have, right? Right? They only, when the lump proletariat is educated and become politically aware of their socioeconomic condition, that the possibility exists for them to become stout supporters of the revolution. That's what happened with the Black Panther Party. That's what you see happening with the NOI. That's what happened with the PGRNA when it first came into existence. That's what happened to Malcolm X grassroots movement and various other movements that we have going on in this country, right? Majority of us, well, let me make a certain caveat to that. Many of the Malcolm X grassroots movement are individuals who come from the lower middle class, right? Many of us college students, college graduates, right? Which is a beautiful thing, okay? So they don't necessarily, not everyone in the MXG comes from the lumpen, okay? But there are those who do. And they have come to an understanding of their relationship to our people, okay? So for us, it's important for us to make that distinction, have that understanding, and move forward from there. All right. So I just gave you a breakdown, description of the 4 classes. All right. Important for us to understand those 4 classes, right? So that we can be better capable of challenging and knowing who we are up against when we make those kind of challenges. All right, particularly in regards to state elected officials and business people. Right. Remember, the Black Panther Party went to business people and said, "Listen, y'all gotta give it up. Right? We gotta feed these babies." Okay. They said we was extorting them and et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? We feed these children. Right? And we tell them you gotta give it up or you ain't gonna be here. Okay. And that's how we have to grow. That's how we have to evolve and ensure that these children are fed. Okay. So I'm gonna go over to the page 115, second paragraph. All right. You guys have studied this, right? Thus, class struggle for national unity must begin by understanding the aspects of particular contradiction. Did I say that earlier? The particular contradiction existing between 2 contending forces within the neo-colony, and how these forces in unity and struggle dialectically attract and repel one another. Dialectics, unity and struggle. Dialectics is a concept, for instance, you know what a magnet is, right? A magnet, right? And a magnet has 2 poles, and a positive pole and a negative pole, right? You can't put the 2 negatives together, and can't put the 2 positives together, right? But inside that magnet, right, they're unified. In the middle of that magnet, they're unified, okay? And that's what we need to do. We have to find the means for which we can, our opposite poles can come together in unity and struggle in terms of our purpose, okay? And so we find here that when I say attract and repel one another politically and determine the basis of the relationship between the oppressed and African people, building and sustaining aspirations and the fight for independence. That's why we say free the land, right? That's our motto, right? And we must say it to everybody, free the land. And let's go to discuss about that. What is free the land? Right? Why we free the land? Majority of Black people and New African people today live in the Black Belt South. That's our ancestral homeland, right? Over 400, 500 years in this country. Yeah, that's our ancestral homeland. And many of them are returning back to the South, right? And so that's part of our struggle. And so we draw the line of demarcation between programs and objectives of 2 forces in relation to the present African nation. All right. Let's go to the next page, please. It's important to understand that the demarcation has to be based upon socioeconomic and political lines, right? If they're not working in support of our people, then who are they working in support of? Or the system, okay? And so we have to challenge our people right on this level, okay? So the bootlicking lackeys, the principal contradiction exists between the neo-colony and the colonialist government, leading to confrontation. It will lead to confrontation, right? When we challenge, particularly we challenge the petty bourgeoisie and the bourgeoisie, right? Because they don't want to give up their value or what they believe is their value, right? As individuals. Remember I talk about capitalism based on individualism competition as individuals. So they won't adhere to the idea that we are a pressed nation within the nation. And that's the problem we're going to have with the Black Liberation Movement people who have not identified themselves as an African. They're going to reveal themselves. Okay, so the third paragraph. The momentums of a class struggle for national unity is for revolutionary national forces to build support for the independence movement by dissecting the prospects of integration and the capitalist system. We have to tear it apart, look at it scientifically, right? We have to put it under a microscope, look at it scientifically, understand its operation, how it functions. Class divisions within the structural foundation of capitalism determines the essence, basis for which, the essential basis for which a particular contradiction rests, which in and of itself indicates the integration into this system would be perpetual to class divisions and exploitation of neo-colony. So there ain't no integration. Integration is death for us, right? In fact, they don't even want us anymore. We have served our usefulness in this country. Okay, that's problematic. All right, so let's go. And so for us, class struggle will never, last paragraph, class struggle will never cause a contradiction to arise amongst the neo-colonists and their supporters, right? Because we want to create a rift between the neo-colonists and the colonial enemy, right? We want to make the country, we want to make them uncomfortable, right? In terms of their relationship to the colonial government, right? We want to call them sellouts. We want to call them, quote unquote, Uncle Toms and Aunt Jennies, right? We want to call them Negroes. We want to call them assimilationists, right? And it's important for us for them to be challenged in that way, challenged in that capacity. So we want to heighten political consciousness and competitiveness amongst the classes within the neo-colony. We have to heighten the contradiction, right? Because that's the only way we're going to come to some resolution. All right? The various segments of the middle class will split. They will split, right? For and against the course of development between the national bourgeoisie and the neo-colony, and the revolutionary nationalist working class as epitomized by the forces for independence. The working class will gain a better understanding of the political determination of the movement, gaining a class consciousness, right? That will reinforce a nationalist fervor. All right? So our goal now is to ensure that our people have a class consciousness, that they understand that they're part of a particular class, the oppressed class, right? And what does that mean and what does that entail? Okay. I'm going down to the third paragraph on the next page, page 117, right? And it says, at first, the class struggle may appear to be divisive. Let's understand that. It gives the appearance to be divisive. It gives the appearance that we are in struggle, but we are, right? It gives the appearance that we're divided, but we are, okay? It gives the experience that we are in contradiction to one another. Yes, we are. And we heighten that contradiction into understanding what is the true course of our struggle, right? So it's not until the lines of demarcation have been drawn between two contending forces and directions of neo-colony struggle for self-determination and independence. We have to draw that line. Either you're assimilationist, integrationist, or you're a revolutionary nationalist moving for independence of our people. You ain't be two.
I want to say that's important because like in times like when it's like not just the president, it's not just you have to vote for Democrat versus Republican, but it's also black. It's like the number one attack we're gonna get always is like you're not standing with Kamala or Barack or whoever. You're not standing with these people, so you're appearing divisive. That's what I got from it. Like you're appearing divisive, but like he said, like we are being divisive because we're wanting more, we're demanding more, we're demanding national liberation. I think that's something we got to remember because like yeah, it gets really hard because I feel like sometimes we'll get alienated because they'll be like, you got to vote against Trump, but then we got to know what we're standing for.
Yeah. Well, voting against Trump and voting for Kamala is still voting for genocides. It's still voting for our oppression. Let's be clear with that, right? Kamala is not gonna free us, right? Before Kamala frees, they'll kill her. Okay. Rest assured of that, right? That's why Obama had so much protection around him. Okay. Fact. And he was the Jack and neo-colonialist, right? He was an imperialist. Okay. So the black face is not what counts. What counts is the mentality, is the mind. All right? Okay. So thereby class struggle for national unity becomes an essential part of the liberation movement, a fight for black community control, and part in which particularities of the contradiction of class division within the neo-colony becomes a motivating factor by which the principal contradiction between the neo-colony and the colonial government becomes acute and antagonistic. Right there. That's the sentence. That's the sentence. That's where we need to go. Right? That's where we need to go. We have to create the conditions where the neo-colony and the colonial entities are at loggerheads with one another. Right? That's why we build towards national unity. Okay. And so because antagonistic and separation, independence becomes the ultimate goal to attain the revolutionary nationalist struggle between the nationally oppressed and the national oppressor. Okay. That's our class struggle. That's our goal and objective of the class struggle. Right? To create the kind of antagonistic contradictions between the neo-colony, our class, or our people, right, our nation, our oppressed nation, and the oppressor nation. Okay, and but we want to do it with a position of strength, and that position of strength is developed as great unity as we possibly can amongst us. Let's go to the next page, please.
118, the second phase.
Yeah, second phase.
Yeah, I'm
second
here.
phase. So we got the class struggle national. Now let me ask: is there any questions or anything that needs to be further discussed in regards to the first phase? Because remember, as I said, the first phase is the hardest. It's the hardest. It's the most difficult. That's going to take the longest time for us to get there, right? Because our people have been so traumatized and assimilated into the system, integrated into the system to a point where they don't know what freedom is. I remember watching the movie Roots. I don't know how you all saw that movie, right? The movie Roots, right? And there's one character in the movie called Chicken George, right? And at the time of Emancipation Proclamation, where the slaves or the Africans who were enslaved became emancipated, Chicken George said this: "I don't know how to be free." Right? I was laying in a bunk, right? And I think in San Quentin or somewhere, right? And when I heard it, I fell off the bunk. I fell off the bunk, right? Because it showed me to what degree this guy had been traumatized to a point that he didn't even realize that he had a human right to be free. Okay? He don't know how to be free. And that's the situation where we have the majority of our people. We don't know what freedom looks like. We've never been free, right? We've always been cartelling to the white folks, to the system, right? And that's why the process of decolonizing, I think, is so essential to the goals and objectives we have to change, the goal and objective we have to achieve, right? We have to engage in class struggle to free our minds so what our ass will follow. Y'all heard me say that? Yeah. Free your mind so your ass will follow. Okay. And that's a part of this class struggle, is to free the mind. So the second phase is national unity for self-government. Of course. How else could it be? If we got national unity, or at least a broad scope of our people unified with the idea that we have to govern ourselves, that we have to seek the means in which to govern ourselves, right? That is the purpose of the second phase. Okay. So within the development of the first phase lies the seed of the second phase, right? The phase whereby the national unity has been attained for the ideas of independence movement. It then becomes possible to challenge the colonial government with a single national program to make concrete immediate demands as expressed during the first phase in terms of civil and human rights, right? We're making concrete demands on the neocolonial, on the colonial government, right? We want land, right? We want our own military, right? We want the human resources. We want the reparations, right? And all that it entails, including the freeing of our political prisoners, okay? Including ending penal slavery, right? Slavery has never been abolished in this country. And we know that. Y'all should know that, right? Based upon the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution. So when we go to the block and talk to the brothers on the block and sisters on the block, you say, yo, man, you setting yourself up for slavery. You want to be a slave? So that's what you're doing, according to the law. Tell them. You want to be a slave? Okay, keep doing what you're doing, because they got no problem putting you in slavery. Right? That's not what I'm saying. That's what they say. That's their law. Okay? Ruffin versus Commonwealth says that prisoners are slaves of the state, black and white. Right? And that's why the process of decolonizing, I think, is so essential to the goals and objectives we have to achieve. Right? We have to engage in class struggle to free our minds so what our ass will follow. Okay? Ruffin versus Commonwealth says that prisoners are slaves of the state, black and white. So we have a slave system. They knew, listen, in 1865, when they ended chattel slave of African people, right? They knew that money is still to be made. So they told the people, you as a human being, right? As a human being, you cannot hold other human beings in bondage, right? As your slave, right? But the state can, right? So they moved from individuals into the state. And they created an institution to ensure that people be funneled into the system, school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration, so they can keep reaping exorbitant profits for free labor or pennies on a dollar. And who's the majority of people in these systems? Black and brown. What? What? We've been hoodwinked. We've been bamboozled. We've been tricked, as Al-Haj Malik Shabazz said. Right? Slavery in this country has never been abolished. Never. And we got to tell people that. We got to tell the brothers on the block that you're setting yourself up to be a slave. Okay? And they know it. Those who've been inside. You got to work. If you don't work, you're locked in a cell. Right? 23 hours a day. So you're compelled to work. It's forced labor. It's slavery. All right, let's go. And so thereby the new African nation has become educated and organized into a national liberation front. Fully none. That's what I'm building. I'm trying to build. Right, with your system, we can make this thing happen. Right, a united front in national unity. And the second phase, they are mobilized for self-determination and self-government. We start creating decolonization programs across the country. And we link these programs together. Okay? Well, the resources that we have generated over the class struggle, right? Some of those petty bourgeoisie Negroes are now becoming new Africans, and they're taking those resources and applying those resources into the community where they need to go in the first place, right? We take it for Paul, we take it for Paul and give it to John or whatever the case may be, right? However that slogan says, Peter paying Paul, right? We're taking the money from Peter and we bring it back home to us, to Paul, okay? And when we start doing it, we start developing new resources, I was watching a TikTok, I think it was TikTok, something, right? And they talk about the exchange of dollars in our community, right? And they said the exchange of dollars in the white community is passed by, I think, 16 times. And the Jewish community is about 18 times or 17 times. And the Spanish community is about 10 times, 9 times. In the black community, a dollar stays in the black community 6 days. Okay, he said 6 days, 6 days or 6 hours, right? And we're depleting our own resources and we're depleting our own wealth by buying into white folks, giving back the money that we get from our own labor. And the system is created that way. We are called wage laborers. Wage laborers. We go to work, get a wage. Okay? And they make the profit. We don't. Okay. And so for us, it's important that we build decolonization programs across the country, right? We establish the means for which the resources, the finances remains in the community as long as we possibly can, right? Freeing the land. Okay. So the political program for that is the National Unity for Self-Government is to submit the struggle for independence, to demand control of socioeconomic political institutions in the ghettos and barrios of the urban and rural areas where new African people comprise a majority. We want to control the means of production in those communities, in those areas, right? Independent of the federal colonial government control. To strengthen and intensify the political struggle between the nationally oppressed and the national oppressor, or to socioeconomically consolidate the prospects for national independence for the basic conditions for which the movement will evolve qualitatively in both the national and international political arena. We have comrades now going to parts of Africa and Europe, right? Talk about our struggle. Talking about what happened with the International Tribunal in 2021, where the International Tribunal found the United States guilty of the charge of genocide against Black, brown, and indigenous people. So we're going around the world, we telling our folks, wherever we get a chance to go out there, we tell them the United States has been found guilty of genocide against Black, brown, and indigenous people, that we are suffering genocide in this country. Do you realize, I want you guys to check, go check, right? For the last 20 years, look at the growth, the margin of growth of Black people in this country. It's almost negligible. for the last 20, 30 years. It's almost negligible. Between 11 and 13% of the population. It's been like that for almost 50 years. There's no growth amongst black people in this country. It's genocide, bro. Mass incarceration. They're putting us in prison, age 16, right? 19, 20, 21, for decades. At the time when you're most apt to reproduce. So you don't get out for 20, 30 years, you ain't reproduce. What does that do to our population? It diminishes. There's no growth. It decreases it. The killing of us in our community, the drug overdose in our community, right? It's killing us. They're decimating who we are as a people in this country. That's the reality that we are facing. Right? What they did in January, I don't want to get too far off from the text, but what happened in January 6th, I got a whole PowerPoint presentation deal with this issue, right? One of these days, maybe we can get together and have a PowerPoint presentation, and I deal with this information from 1492 to the present. But in either case, I tell you what I do. I'll send you the link to the presentation because it's been recorded. Let me find it right quick. And I'll send, here it is right here. Okay.
You can send it. You can send that to me, and then I'll get it to everybody. I don't want to get lost in the chat, but or you can put
Here
it
it is right here. That's it right there, right? Absolutely. Okay, so there's the YouTube of my PowerPoint presentation. You can share that as much as you like. Okay, people need to hear that. Okay, so so that's the second phase, right? Thus, in the second phase, page 119. Thus, the second phase is a prerequisite to national independence. It is a phase in which new African nation begins to formulate the means and methods of self-governing the geographical areas where new Africans constitute a majority. Wherever we are, we're creating autonomous liberated zones, liberated territory, right? We are creating a condition for which we control much of the resources in our community and build on the basis of those resources, right? We control not only the economics, but we also control the politics that goes on in our community, right? So in this phase, the new African nation formulates the means and methods of self-governing in geographical areas where new Africans constitute the majority to control and direct the resources, labor, institutions, and wealth, which determines the extent of their livelihood. The demands of civil and human rights as applicable to conditions will preserve the growth and development of the liberation movement, and the Africans will become self-determinative and manifesting their future on all fronts, right? Whether it's school building or where you work at, whether it's the urban gardens or the clothing and health centers, right? Like my dear cousin in California, he put together a health mobile, right? We goes in the community and deal with issues of health. He has a relationship with doctors and nurses, right, who support that kind of development. That's a decolonization program, right? We begin to take care of ourselves, right? If we don't do anything else, establish wherever you are, establish some kind of health clinic in the community, right? To preserve our people, right? Community-based programming, absolutely. That's what we're talking about. But we're identifying them as decolonization programs. In the Black Panther Party, it was called Survival Programs Pending Revolution. That model is negative, has negative connotation. Pending revolution, no. Our course of struggle, decolonization program, is part of the revolution. We ain't pending the revolution, we're building the revolution by developing these decolonization programs, okay? And that in of itself speaks to our mentality, to our thinking, right? To our decolonizing ourselves, right? In terms of our, so we're building survival programs pending the revolution. We're building the revolution by developing the survival program, okay? There's a whole different meaning, a whole different understanding, connotations to that, right? That's why decolonization programs is important. And so we go on here when I say the federal colonial government will be called upon to relinquish taxations to New Africans so that the tax money will be redistributed in accordance to the needs of New African communities, all right? And establish New African sovereignty. It will also be called upon to build a New African security force and military, construction of New African industries in the national territory of Kush, building national economic systems of support for the autonomous regions of New African communities across the country, and developing economic ties internationally, right? Economic ties internationally to demand the release of New African prisoners, right? And building a New African nation in both rural and urban areas, to organize national plebiscite, if we still need to do that, right? Plebiscite vote for independence, to be monitored by the United Nations or the Organization of African Unity, wherever it comes to the African Unity, right? Or demand reparations of slaves over the last 400 years, past 400 years. See, so now, in the second phase, we start structuring the governing, right? We start creating the conditions for which we are governing, right? For self-government. We begin to think in terms that we can govern ourselves. We need to be governed by them. In fact, not only we don't need to be governed by them, you owe us, right? Give me that. Give me that. Give me that, or we shut this country down. We ain't doing no work. Anybody gonna do no work, and we shut the country down. You ain't making no money because we ain't making no money. They ain't making no money off us, right? That's usually why I'm trying to find these immigrants and give them money for housing and stuff like that, right? And not giving that to us, right? They're trying to find a new slave. I'm telling you now, right? As far as they're concerned, we become obsolete, right? Because of how we think and how we have grown, right? That we can no longer be controlled as they want. That's the reason why they want to do what they're doing. Oh, I was talking about January 6th when they stormed Congress. We know that if us black and brown people had did that, there have been bodies all over the Congressional Plaza. There have been more people down. We know that. Why didn't they do that to them? Why not? Because they're on the same page. They may not like what they did, but they're on the same page. What were they there for? To nullify the black vote. That's what they're there for. So to nullify the black vote, what you notify? Nullifying black power in their concept and their understanding of how the voting works. And you're nullifying black vote, and nullifying black people. How can you get see that transition? How can you see that line of detriment and what they're planning? And if Trump comes to office, listen, we better get our shit together. I'm telling you now, and I use that word deliberately. We gotta get together because they ain't playing no games, right? They're not. Let's go to page 120. Anybody got a question here before I go on? No questions. All right.
I had a quick question.
Okay, all right, my brother Quentin.
When you talk about the immigration deal, do you think we should also look at that as a part of the lumping that's coming into this country? And even though we might not be at phase 2 yet, but knowing that they're coming into the poor working class communities, should they also be embraced, considering what's inevitable in the future?
Okay, good point. The question to that is yes. But the answer to that is yes. And and let me explain why. Why did they come to this country? Why?
Because of the U.S. extraction in their country.
Exactly. So they come to this country to attain what was extracted from their country. Right? That's what they're doing. Let's look at it in this dialectical sense. Okay? The United States oppresses those countries, extract the resources, either labor or material resources from out of those countries, leaving people destitute, impoverished. What are they gonna do? They're gonna go where their money has been sent to. So that's the kind of conversation we need to have with them. That's the kind of conversation we need to have with ourselves. And what that does, it internationalizes our understanding of how the system functions in the capacity where it creates conditions where people have to migrate. They have to migrate. right? Their survival is based upon migrating because they have exhausted, their country has been exhausted of their natural resources and their talent. Okay. And so when we build on the basis of that understanding, that internationalist understanding, that Pan-Africanist understanding, we can see how imperialism works, right? We're looking at it from an imperialist viewpoint. So I'm not condemning those coming from down south, right, up north. I can't condemn them, right? Because they are functioning in terms of their survival based upon a system that has basically assured that their survival in their hometown or home country is almost impossible. It's difficult. And you see what's going on over there. They create the gangs, right? Murderous gangs who are illegitimate capitalists, as I already explained. So what we have in our community, the same thing. The gangs or illegitimate capitalists because of what condition? Impoverishment. Poverty in our community. So whether we look at it on the microcosm or the macrocosm, it is the same concept, same principles that we engage in, right? And it's important for us to understand it. Sister Tamara, you have a question?
Yes. Hi everybody. First off, just thank you so much, Baba Jalil, and for your struggle, for the guidance, and for you know, getting out and being able to teach us, you know, how to move. I wanted to ask a question about the youth, because what I find in Dallas is that a lot of times, I know you talked about that international consciousness and raising that international consciousness on what imperialism really looks like, to be able to speak to the different communities that the different factions and the different communities that capitalism has done this to. But in Dallas, I find that the youth are the easiest to radicalize. So I think I really be wanting to know, like, one, how did you, you know, maybe like, how did y'all radicalize the youth, or teach the youth back in your day? Or like, what will move our youth to really seeing like the interconnectedness of it all? Because I feel like they want to move.
Yes, they do. I
you know
agree
what I
with
mean?
you, sis. I agree with you. They're tired.
Yeah.
They're done. They just don't know where to go and how to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that they've done in terms of in the destruction of the Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army, right? They removed that history of resistance. And so it's important for us to teach that history of resistance to our young people. Okay, I had a Zoom meeting with some young people, some high school students last week, right? And one thing I told them, that we have a history of resistance. We have to resist, okay? And then we show them how to resist, what methods and means for which to do so. But I do not want to discourage their anger or their dismay. What I do want to do is discourage their apathy, right? And their feeling of defeatist attitudes, right? We got to let them know we can win, and we will win. We have, as Solitude says, we have a duty to fight. We have a duty to win, right?
Okay.
We have nothing to lose but the breaking of our chains. We have to learn to love one another. Right?
Right.
So that's the goal, sis. Yes, they see things as I did when I was a young person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the elders was not nowhere to understand what was going on. They were down with the civil rights movement, right? And reformists and assimilationists. I said, that ain't happening with me. Right. And I joined the Black Panther Party. You see? So we have to create conditions for which they can join something.
Okay.
With that understanding. And that's the reason why, again, I'm trying to build Froley Nine, to bring all our forces together, right? So we're speaking in the same language. So what you hear on the West Coast is the same thing you hear on the East Coast. The same thing you hear down south, the same information you hear up north, right? So we speak in one voice as much as we possibly can. So that when we make our appeal, and I say that deliberately, right? Our appeal to the colonial government, we'll be speaking in one voice, and we know we're serious. All right.
Thank you.
That they cannot divide us. And that's one thing they always choose, divide and conquer principle. Okay. I hope I answered your question and gave you some insight.
You did. Thank you so much, Baba Jalil. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sister, and I appreciate you as well. You know, I mean, you and the rest of your comrades here are precious. You're precious to this movement, right? You're precious to our people, right? Know that, right? And it's because that you are willing to dedicate yourself to our people generationally, right? When I first got into the movement, I thought we were gonna have a revolution in my lifetime, right? That's how gung-ho I was, okay? Revolution in our lifetime. No, it's not that. It is not a sprint, it is a marathon, okay? And so when you talk to them young people out in the streets, prepare them to take the baton, right? Because when it comes time to pass it, we gotta have somebody there to pick it up in this relay, okay, in this marathon. And so that's what we're preparing the young people for. Ready to pick up the baton when it's ready to be passed to you, okay? I know we're getting short on time, so let me just get through this as fast as I possibly can. Third paragraph, page, what's that, 120, 121. Of course, the fight for Kush cannot be fully developed until the course of struggle for self-government has evolved. The mechanisms and institutions for governmental organization and national magnitude with international recognition. We have to get recognized with the international community. Providing the essential tasks of government from all socioeconomic political fronts, such as agriculture, industries, national security, and etc. It cannot be expected of New Africans to sacrifice beyond the exercise and expectations of the government to provide a stable livelihood for its nationals. We cannot, right? That's asking for too much, right? When they get crumbs off the table of the billionaires, right? And we ain't feeding them nothing. We got to be able to provide services to our community. That's why decolonization programs is important, right? So they'll come to us rather than go to them, okay? And that's important. All right, so thereby the first two phases line up the socioeconomic and political aspects of the struggle in a strategic position to challenge the colonial government. Next page, please. Right. So we'll go from the second page to national struggle. I went from the class struggle for national unity for self-government, where we're building the institutions of government wherever we are organized, right? Whether you're down south, up north, or to the west, right? Wherever you are, you're organizing independent programs for which we are dependent upon each other for our survival, all right? And therefore, at the third phase, we're taking those resources in various parts of the country and we transfer them, we're migrating back to the land. And we're bringing those resources with us as we also are organized on the land to accept our people who's coming to the national territory, to Kush. Okay? So the third phase is actually, the last phase is the phase where we are actually fully engaged in revolution and the independence movement, right? National liberation movement, fully engaged. We have the resources. We have the unity of mind and spirit, okay? And we have organized the resources. So now we can actually say, let's go. Let's go get this land, right? And create the kind of defense mechanisms that we need to have in order to secure the land. One of the areas in which we're doing this in terms of defense mechanism is we're building what we call the People's Senate. So you heard about the People's Senate, right? The People's Senate is concentric circles that we're going to organize, that we're organizing to be a protective buffer around the territory. All right? So in order to get to us in the territory, they got to go through that buffer. All right? That's what we're building for the People's Senate. Okay? We're organizing people to understand that way and also have the means and mechanisms for which they can govern themselves, creating alternative systems of governing the People's Senate. All right? So we're working on two levels. One, the national liberation and independence of our people, and also building the conditions for which we'll be secure when we find national liberation and independence, right? Because we have challenged the system in and of itself and created contradictions that they cannot function in a capacity where they can overwhelm us without white folks and other folks saying, no, you ain't doing that, right? It happened before, civil rights movement, not civil rights, civil war. White folks fighting against white folks about what to do about black folks. That's what the Civil War was about. Okay? But this time, we ought to determine what to do about black folks. Because we're going to tell them, this is what we want you to do about us. All right? We're going to be pawns in the game. We're going to be the whole board. All right? So,
Black liberation.
yes, brother.
Look it up when you get Black liberation.
Brother Balago,
Rafael,
you have a question?
your mic is on mute.
So I was just listening to music on my phone, right?
Rafael.
All right, cool. All right, so
I muted him. Go ahead.
Second paragraph does self-government for national independence in the third phase of the theory. Strategically is the phase in which all others work to accomplish. The point in the national liberation struggle where new Africans are in a position to strength beyond the capacity of the colonial government to destroy the independence movement. The seed of independence planted in the first phase and cultivated in the second phase will be blossomed, and in the third phase will be harvested. And national independence will become an accomplished reality. Okay? You see that analogy there? You see how we're working? See how this strategy, see how this theory works? All right? If you can come up with a better theory, bring it to me. All right? Because I want to hear it. I need something better. If you get something better than this here, bring it to me. All right? I'm down with it. Okay? I ain't tied to this at this to be all and end all. All right? This is a theoretical position, right? That was written over 25 years ago. All right. We're understanding where we're going to be at in the future. And so here we can conclude, right? The course of our struggle will ensure that the independence movement will not become subjugated to the class struggle of European Americans. Right? Because that's what they try to do. The Communist Party, the Socialist Party, so on and so on. They try to ensure that we adhere to what they want to do and build what they call a socialist America, and it be negation of our struggle for national liberation and independence. Right? They want to still keep us within their fold. That ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. What we're gonna do is build the People's Senate, right? So that you can understand what we want from y'all, not what y'all want from us. Okay. So that's the class national liberation struggle of New Africans obedience to the subject of European Americans. 49 maintains the New African independence movement is independent of and held in juxtaposition to the class struggle of European Americans, held alongside it, right? Alongside it, independent of it, but alongside it, okay? All right. And we're not allowing them to subjugate us, and we don't have no intention of subjugating them, right? But we're gonna have an understanding, right, of what we are and what we intend to achieve in the course of the struggle. And so thereby the fulfillment of this proposition does not negate a relationship with the class struggle of European Americans, but rather base such relationship on the political determination of the African independence movement and not in reverse. Right? We are taking the lead. Furthermore, Ferdinand holds that the building of national liberation struggle is the free new African social, psychologically, social, economically, politically, and culturally from neo-colonialism, in particular aspect of the principal struggle to end colonial domination. All right, so I won't go into the rest of that in terms of falling on, because I'm not pitching falling on right now. I'm just talking about the three-phase theory, right, and which is encompassing of the theoretical foundation of falling on. So our goal and objective is independence in the free land and national territory of Kush. All right, so that's the three-phase theory for national independence in a nutshell. And I'm hoping that you all receive something from this, from the discussion. I ask that you share it, this understanding with others. Bring them on board, right? Give them an understanding of what this is about. Naturally, our next phase in terms of this study will be the national strategy, right? The basic aim and objectives of what we call organization. Why we need to do that, right? And building on the basis of that. I don't care what organization you're linked to. If you're a New African, you should be part of Falling On when we build it. And hopefully within the next 6 months, I will be issuing a document introducing Falling On and the basis for us organizing Falling On. And I'm not asking anyone to lead themselves of their organization. I'm asking them to come in compliance or come in unity, right, in cooperation with falling on, right, with at least with the theoretical foundation and the national strategy. Okay, if you want to call yourself whatever you want to call yourself in terms of the organization, right? If you're moving in this same direction, right? If you have an understanding of what we are trying to achieve in the goal, if you have a theoretical foundation, if you're building decolonization programs, then you're part of falling on, period. Okay, that's how that goes. All right, my brothers and sisters, it's 8:39. I gotta go put some vittles in my stomach because I'm starving. And inshallah, God willing, we'll reconvene at some other point in time and get more brothers and sisters involved and engaged in this discussion. I appreciate the ask. I really do. I appreciate you guys asking me to talk with you all and discuss these issues with you. I'm honored to have this opportunity to speak with y'all. Yeah, we are revolutionaries. Okay. I don't know how many of you publicly identify yourself as that, but I do. When I go on presentations and events and so forth, I say, yes, I'm a revolutionary.
Right.
All right. And the reason why I say that, because I understand the word, what it means. I studied it. Right? I broke it down. All right. You take the word revolution, take the R off, what you got?
Evolution.
Evolutionary.
Evolution. Now, what individual of us don't want to be an evolutionary? To want to evolve from one state of existence to a higher and better state of existence. That's what evolution means, doesn't it? Right. You're not evolving, you're devolving. Right? And in this understanding of who we are as a species on this planet, we have to evolve. We have to grow. Right? Because they're killing the planet. Right? We have to grow. So our evolutionary process sometimes demands to put the R back on. So what does the R does? It takes social dynamics from one level of existence to a higher and greater level of existence. From the quantitative to the qualitative. That's dialectics. It's the principle of dialectics. Okay? So yeah, I'm a revolutionary. Okay? We all are. We just don't understand the nature of it. Because we're evolving as a species on this planet. Right? What they call Africanus, right? Neanderthals, Cro-Magnon, Homo sapien, Homo sapien sapien. That's evolutionary evolvement. Okay? Where are we going to be in the next 100 years? I don't know. I probably won't be here. But nonetheless, right? If we succeed in what we're doing, we're going to be at a greater state of existence on this planet. Not only do we save ourselves, but we save the planet. Another thing I tell people, right? I went to Venezuela, I went to Greece, I went to other places, right, for discussions, and I tell them, right, when I went to Greece, I told them Europeans over there, I said, listen, you're not going to be free until Black people are free. Tell the world.
Shame.
The world will not be free until Black people are free. We are the most downtrodden people on the planet. I don't care if we go to Australia, Italy, Germany, South Africa, Brazil, Black folks are downtrodden. Right? Because we live in a world, a world of white supremacy. System of white supremacy all around the world. Okay? Our liberation is liberating the world. Another reason why that's important is because we're in the belly of the beast. We're in the belly of the empire. The world is waiting on us. They're waiting for us to get our shit together. The entire planet. Right? Because when we end white supremacy, we end not only for us, we end for the world. And who they'll come to speak to? They'll come to speak to us. Why? Because we can speak in all the languages. Right? We got to know our worth, our value. We got to know that. We got to resurrect that in our spirit. Our value to this planet. Right? Did we create them? Did we create them? Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Are we the first on this planet? Do you believe that? Yeah, right. Yeah. They know it. That's why they keep us suppressed. Because they know it. That's why they're scared of the critical race theory, right? Critical race theory is telling the truth of their barbarity and their savagery.
That's right. That's right. Now,
They're
Elder,
scared. They want their children to know how savage and barbaric they've been throughout history. Right? That's what I tell them. I tell them straight up. There's no filter on this tongue. No, now we're talking about our freedom.
That's right.
All right. So listen, I gotta roll.
Right?
Sure.
The pleasure is all ours, and we're gonna have you come back to the national. We're gonna have you come back to the national meeting, and we're gonna continue these discussions. So thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, brothers and sisters. I love y'all. Right? Please stay safe out there, because you know they're after us. All right? Right? As they say, watch your six. Watch your six. Watch your six. Okay. Every time I leave the house, I don't know I'm coming back. Yeah. I don't know I'm coming back. I don't know. Okay. I pray that I do, but I don't know. And I'm prepared for that. Assalamu alaikum, peace, pause, baragani, jumbo. All power to the people.
All power to the people. Thank you, Baba Jalil.